about to head down to Circuit Motorsports. I'm going to rip the front axles out of the Skyline because we need to have the CVs rebuilt. There's also a couple cars that I tuned the last few days. We just need to check a couple things on and make sure they're ready for the customer to pick up. So let's head down to Circuit and see what's up. Of course it's raining. It's always raining in summer in Florida, even when the sky's blue. I don't know if you can tell right now, the sky's blue, but it's raining. Welcome to Florida. One of the next things you'll be seeing on the channel is I will be building a custom bracket to mount the ECU down to the floorboard by the passenger feet there. That is the ECU. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit behind the stock trim like the OEM ECU did, so it is just kind of zip tied up out of the way right now, so that way the passenger has some foot room. But we're gonna end up building pretty much a bracket that it'll fix to, and then I'll put a flat piece of, I don't know, some kind of vinyl or something over it, so that way when the passenger puts their feet down, they're not standing right on the ECU, but that way we've still got some extra room over there and we can get the trim piece back on. So that is one thing we'll be doing in the near future here. Let's see if we can get it to do it. I don't know if you heard it, but right as I came from a dead stop, there's a slight popping noise. That is the front CVs. I believe that pop specifically was the passenger side CV. But what's going on is both of the front CVs have a little bit of side-to-side play. So when you're starting from a dead stop, they've got a little. They're making a popping noise, and it's nothing really more than a noise at this point, but it is getting slightly worse. So we found a good CV rebuilding place in town since there aren't many good options for new CVs or replacement CVs. So I'm going to be ripping them out today and taking them to this discount CV place, and they'll rebuild them and we'll pop them back in. And it looks like we are pulling up to Circuit Motorsports right now. Here we are at Circuit Motorsports. Here we are. Alright, so I just got a couple of ball joint unbolted, and tie rod unbolted, so I can kind of pull the hub away and slip the axle out from the inside. One of the very first things I did on this car, maintenance-wise actually, was replace this wheel bearing. What I've learned is when these wheel bearings fail, they fail very quickly. It went from being perfectly fine to making a little bit of noise to about an hour later after it started making a smidgen of noise, completely failing. The actual grooves in the axle for the vehicle speed rubbing on the inside of the hub, and I had to trailer the car here to pull it apart and replace the wheel bearing. I actually did the passenger side about 3 or 4 weeks ago as well. What I just noticed after pulling this all apart and getting the axle nut off is this already has play. It already looks like it's got a decent amount of movement, so it looks like I'll be trying to source another wheel bearing while we're doing the axle. First axle out. As you can see, it needs some love.
There's no denying what we want. There's no denying what we want. Playing games, no. There's no denying what we want. There's no denying what we want. Playing games, no. There's no denying what we want. There's no denying.
So I'm in a 2014 WRX. This is a car I actually tuned, I don't know, probably in October or November, something like that. The car started doing some weird electrical stuff not that long ago, and it looks like it could be a possible ECU issue. So we're just test driving the car so we can do what's called a memory snapshot. When the car starts acting up, we're pretty much going to take a snapshot exactly of what the ECU is doing at that time, and we're going to send that to Cobb Tuning so that they can verify that the ECU is or is not doing what we're telling it to do. It looks like it is not doing what we're telling it to do. It also is coming up with some traction lights, which are most likely related to the throttle body. If it has any throttle issues, it will have some VDC, which is the traction control. It will have some VDC and hill assist issues as well, and kick those off. And as you can see, those are on, and that is most likely why, which I don't think it's the actual throttle body itself. I do believe it is an ECU or some kind of electric issue. So I'm driving this car to kind of, you know, figure out what the heck's going on with it, but also we need to drop off the axles at the CV place to have them rebuilt. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on with this thing. One of the things this car was doing was it was holding excessive fuel pressure for a good amount of time. So we've got a fuel pressure gauge here where I can monitor it. Unfortunately, it's raining out, so it does not stay still, and it swipes across the windshield every 2 seconds, so normal Florida problems. Super clean Mustang. Pulling into the CV place right now. Let's find a good place to park. Well, this is what the car is doing. As you can see, it's kind of hard to tell, but that is 60 psi of fuel pressure on startup. It seems to be holding excessive fuel pressure and making the car run like crap. Sitting at idle like this, it should be at about 38 psi, and it's sitting here pinned at 60. And because it's sitting here pinned at 60, it's running excessively rich and trying to pull a bunch of fuel. It seems to only, yeah, see, then it just came back down, so it seems to just be sticking temporarily. We have replaced a fuel pressure regulator, we have checked and replaced seals on the pump, and we have also replaced the injectors because they were old and they were dirty, and we thought it might have been one of the reasons it was holding excessive fuel pressure, but as you can see, it still seems to be doing it. So we just took a memory snapshot of the car, and hopefully Cobb can give us some information. I just dropped off the CV axles. It's called Discount CV. Over here off of Gore Street in Orlando. Joel is the tech that I spoke with. He said they'll be ready tomorrow and we'll pop them back in. So if you need some CVs rebuilt in the Orlando area, look up Discount CV on Gore Street. Super cool people and super helpful. We're getting back to circuit. This car seems to be doing, like I said, it's holding excessive fuel pressure on startup and in a couple other moments off throttle. But for the most part, when this car's not doing that, it drives pretty well. I actually accidentally spun all 4 tires on it in second gear a few minutes ago. It's a little wet out, obviously, but it is also stock turbo, stock intercooler, stock injectors, so this car doesn't make crazy power. If I remember correctly, it did about 320 and 360. It does have a built motor because it did have an engine failure with some of the cast pistons. Cylinder 4, of course, went. So it does have pistons and rods. But other than that, it is a pretty stock car, and it did pretty well. But when it's driving good, it drives pretty good. So hopefully we figure out what's going on with this thing, and hopefully it is just something ECU-wise that we can just replace and flash the old tune on. It should be okay, but hopefully we get it figured out. So I was just informed that there was a really nasty STI with a bunch of real JDM S203 parts on it, so I had to come out here and check it out. And a really nasty STI is kind of an understatement. So this thing is gnarly. Let's check it out. So we got the memory snapshot we needed of the 2014 WRX hatch. We have a few things we're going to look into in the fuel system. We're going to make sure that the fuel pump is being powered correctly and it's not seeing too much voltage or anything like that. If all that checks out, we're going to swap in a brand new fuel pressure regulator because something's going on that's making that car hold excessive fuel pressure where it's not supposed to be. So we're going to look into that car a little bit more mechanically. But now I'm going to go back to Mazdaspeed 6. I put a base map on yesterday just before I left the shop. So we need to start dialing it in. Again, it's just a base map. It's got a Cork Sport 3.5 bar map. It's got Cork Sport Turbo, Cobb SF intake, a few other bolt-ons. You know, it's also got a EGR delete, a few other things like that. So let's get in this car and start dialing it in a little bit. Where'd that thing go? There it is. All right. Now this car does have a couple codes at the moment. If I remember correctly, they are fuel pressure related or something along those lines. So we're gonna have to look into that as well before we get this thing started. This thing sounds a little rough, so let's see what's going on. Code we have is fuel pressure regulator control circuit low. So we might end PCM code. So we might have a couple things we need to look into before we actually really get into tuning this thing. Just taking a quick glance under the hood, I'm checking all the plugs and all the wiring around the fuel rail and around the fuel pressure regulator, and everything wiring wise seems to be okay. All the harnesses or all the connectors are plugged in on the high pressure fuel pump, on pretty much everything around it. So it doesn't seem to be a wiring issue. It doesn't seem to be connector not plugged in or something like that. So we might actually have an issue with the high pressure fuel pump. It does have replaced internals. Now that was done before the car was brought to us at Circuit Motorsports, but there could be an issue with it. So we just put some gas in it. The car has been sitting insanely low on the fuel for a while. There is a possibility that there's just not enough fuel in there to provide the pressure that it needs. So we did just come and put some gas in it and see if that makes a difference at all. If not, we're gonna have to start tearing down the fuel system to figure out what's going on. Alright guys, fingers crossed. Let's see. And she's definitely still there. Let me try resetting the ECU now that we've got some gas in it, but it's looking like we're gonna need to look into this a little bit more mechanically. Yep, same thing. It's, if you can see, just says, it's kind of hard to see, but it just says PCM and fuel pressure regulator circuit low. So again, it's looking like we might have something mechanically going on. Alright, turn it off. Cycle the key, just the heck of it. Yep, I didn't think I was gonna make it go away, but it was worth a shot. So it looks like we're gonna have to look into the high pressure fuel pump internals, possibly check the in-tank pump and make sure nothing's going on there. But I will not be able to calibrate this car correctly or continue tuning it with it, you know, not having the fuel pressure it needs and going into limp mode. So we're going to take it back to the shop, look into it a little bit, and won't have a chance to start tuning on it today. It's already getting pretty late for the day, but if not tomorrow, next week we'll get back into this car. Well, since the Skyline's going to be in pieces till tomorrow, looks like we're going for a ride in the TR. So I'm on the way home in the queue right now with my wife. And it looks like we're not going to get to continue tuning that Mazda tomorrow. We're going to have to look into some fuel system things and figure out why the fuel pressure regulator circuit is low, and we're going to try and see if it's a sensor thing, if it's a mechanical thing, or what, but we're going to have to dive into that a little bit before I continue tuning it. Also, my axles for the Skyline will probably not be done till around 1 or 2 o'clock, and unfortunately, wife and I are heading to St. Petersburg tomorrow for the Apple a Day Prom charity event. It starts at about 7, so we need to leave Orlando by like 4 at the latest, probably. So the chances of me getting the Skyline all back together and back on the road are very, very, very slim, unless they call me first thing in the morning and say they're done. So most likely we'll get the Skyline back together Monday, but this weekend I will be going to Mike's, Mike of Speed Quest, and we're going to install an Emu Black into his Evo 8, and we're going to start tuning that car and getting it running. We had some issues with the V1 AEM we were trying to tune it with. After messing with it for a day and a half, 2 days, we realized that it was an ECU issue, probably why the old owner got rid of it. But so we got an Emu Black that just came in today, and we'll wire that up and get that started, and then we'll get back to the Skyline on Monday, so stay tuned.